Welcome everybody. Welcome to the Mental Warrior 22 show. I am your host, Alex Bonilla. I'm grateful that you are here tonight, whether you're joining on Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you're joining from. Thank you for spending part of your evening with me. Hey D, thanks for joining. Leanne, thank you. Tonight, we're talking about something that every single one of us has, but very few of us often stop to examine. Tonight, we're talking about the stories that we tell ourselves. Here's where I want to start tonight. Right from the very beginning, my question: who are you when no one else is talking? Who are you when no one else is talking? And I don't mean not your boss, not your spouse, your friends, not the media, not social media, but you. Who are you when no one else is talking? What what's the voice inside of your own head saying? Is it encouraging you, or is it quietly convincing you that you'll never be enough? Because this is what I've learned. The most influential voice in your life isn't the loudest person or the loudest one around you. It's the one that's been living inside your head for years. So some of us wake up every morning already feeling defeated. And it's not because anything bad happened today, but it's because we've been replaying yesterday's story for so long that it feels like tomorrow's already been decided. Maybe you've been telling yourself, I'm not smart enough. I'll always be alone. Everyone leaves me eventually. I always mess everything up. People like me, we don't get that happy ending. And here's the scary part: most of us, we never question those thoughts. We question the compliments, we question the opportunities, and we question whether someone genuinely loves us. But somehow, we rarely question the voice that's been criticizing us for years. And isn't that interesting, though? We demand proof that we're capable, but we never demand proof that we're failures. We want to fact check encouragement, but yet we accept self criticism without any evidence. And somewhere along the way, somebody said something, something happened. You may have experienced rejection, failure, abandonment, or trauma, and your brain did what most brains are designed to do: it created a story. Because stories is what helps us make sense of any pain. And here's the problem: just because a story explains your pain doesn't mean it deserves to become your identity. And I want you to think about that. Some of you have been living inside a story that has been written by someone who hurt you. And maybe that was your parents, maybe it was an ex, a teacher, a bully, or maybe it was just your own worst moment. But somewhere those words became your truth. So tonight, I don't want to motivate you, I want to challenge you. Because healing doesn't begin when life changes, it begins when the story changes. Once again, thank you everyone for joining. What up, Theo? Linda, hey. D, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, it would have been that I always talked down to myself and I wasn't worth the life I am living. But today I'm grateful for the person I am today. And no, it didn't stop, but it has gotten a little less. However, accepting compliments is still very hard for me. Listen, it's still very hard for me. I have a hard time accepting compliments because, again, somewhere along the line, there was a story that's created. I know where that story started for me. I just didn't realize it until later on in my adult years. So, over the next hour, we're going to talk about where these stories come from. and why our minds like to cling to them, right? How they shape every relationship, opportunities, and every risk that we take. And even most importantly, how to start writing a different ending, right? So grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and let's get into it. So, my first question is, who wrote the first story you ever believed about yourself? I want you to think about that. Who wrote the first story you ever believed about yourself? Think about that, because most of us assume that we came up with these beliefs on our own. Well, here, why you really think about that? Do you think most of us that we came up with these beliefs on our own? That you were born believing that you weren't good enough? That you were born believing that you're going to fail, or believing that no one could love you? Of course not. Of course not. These stories, just like most things as a child, right? These things were learned. When we are children, we don't have the ability to separate facts from experience, right? We just absorb. And if someone constantly criticizes you, well, you might have learned you'll never be enough. Theo, I compliment myself all throughout the day. I'm my own best friend. Absolutely. Absolutely. If love was inconsistent in your life, then you may have learned that people always leave, right? Same as if every mistake is punished, then you end up growing up thinking, I have to be perfect. If I mess up, I'm going to be punished. And you see that everywhere, right? You might see that in kids today, or even in your own patterns, that you feel you have to be a perfectionist. If you mess up, oh my God, like you're going to get in trouble, right? But all those things weren't decisions, right? We adapted. We adapted. And that's the beautiful thing about our brains, right? Our brains are incredible, because the number one job of our brain isn't to make us happy, it's to keep us safe, it's to keep us alive. And in order for it to do that, the brain's going to look for patterns. And so I come from a family full of women, the only son of an only son. So I've been the apple of a lot of my family's eyes for a while. My biggest competitor was my dad. Interesting. So imagine touching a hot stove. You don't need to touch it 20 more times, right? Your brain's going to remember, and it's going to say, don't do that again. That's your survival. But here's the problem, and here's where it gets complicated. The brain doesn't just create patterns around your physical danger, it's going to create the patterns around the emotional ones too. So if you were rejected, if you were embarrassed, if you were betrayed, ignored, your brain starts to make those predictions. It starts to say things like, hey, protect yourself. Don't trust people. Stay quiet. Don't speak up. Don't get your hopes up. How many of you say those things to yourself? How many of you are repeating some of those things constantly? Those predictions eventually will become your beliefs. And I want you to imagine putting on a pair of sunglasses. You put on a pair of sunglasses when you step outside. What happens? Once they're on, everything you see is tinted. The world didn't change, your lens did. And that's exactly how our beliefs work. If your internal story is that I'm not good enough, then you're going to notice the criticism, but you're going to overlook all the compliments, because you're constantly saying I'm not good enough. And that's all you're looking for that criticism. If your story is everyone's going to leave, then you're going to notice when you're receiving delayed text messages. You're going to notice those signs because you're looking for them, but you're going to ignore the years of loyalty. Same as if your story is, if I'm going to fail. You're going to notice every mistake that's made, but you're going to dismiss the success. Linda, it's the filter we see those beliefs. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've learned throughout my journey that there were probably seasons in my life where I honestly believed that surviving was all that I was capable of. You know, I wasn't thinking about thriving, not living, just surviving. And it wasn't because someone reminded me of that every day. It was because somewhere along the way, that story just became familiar to me. And familiar stories are dangerous because eventually you stop questioning them. Tasha, being raised by my grandparents gave me the illusion that I was a burden to my parents, and in turn, a burden to my grandparents, who sort of got stuck raising me. It's true, not good enough. See? But that wasn't the truth. That's just a story you created because somewhere you felt that abandonment. You felt that someone was gone. And it was easier to believe that. I struggle with that sometimes. It is easier for me to believe someone's criticism of me and question when someone compliments me. It's easier to believe, oh yeah, nobody loves me. They're just going to go like it. It's easy for your brain to go into that narrative, you know. So I call it your trauma scripts. Yes, absolutely. So have you ever heard someone say, "That's just who I am," or "Oh my God, I always overthink. I always push people away. I always fail." I want you to listen carefully to those words. And it's not because they're facts, right? Because they're stories. Those things that this is just who I am. I always push people away. Those are stories. Those are stories. And stories repeated often, they just begin to sound permanent. Repetition doesn't mean that it's true. It just creates the familiarity, right? So I want to ask you something. This isn't about your career. This isn't about relationships or your goals. I want you to think about the sentence that begins with I am. I am. How do you finish it? I want you to think about that for a moment. I am. Is it I am broken, or I am strong? Is it I am behind, or I'm capable? I am unlovable? I am resilient? How do you finish that I am? I want you to think about that because whatever comes after those two words is going to have an incredible influence on the decisions that you make in your life. Matt, I am exhausted. Okay, so how do we turn that around? Because just like I said, whatever comes after those two words is going to have a huge influence on the decisions you make. If you believe you are exhausted, then that's the feeling you're going to carry in everything you're doing following that, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you don't feel exhausted, that you don't feel tired, you don't feel overwhelmed. No, that's very much true how you feel, but it's just changing the narrative, changing the story, right? Yes, see, I am enough. I am enough. I am me. I love that one. I am me. So I want you to be honest for a second, and I want you to answer, have you ever caught yourself saying, I'll do it when I'm ready? I'll do it when I'm ready. If you've caught yourself saying those words, I will do it when I'm ready, just put a yes in the comments because I can't tell you how many times I've said that. I'll do it when I'm ready, right? So I will do it when I'm ready because I know I'm not the only one. I've heard people, I've heard people say, like, you know what? I'm going to get it done when I'm ready. I'm going to leave that relationship when I'm ready. I'll write the book when I'm ready. You know what? I'm going to start therapy. I'm going to start therapy when I'm ready. I'm going to start that business when I'm ready. Or I'm going to go back to the gym when I'm ready. But who told you that ready comes first? Who told you that ready comes first? Because I got news for you. Ready is not a feeling. Ready is a decision. And I want you to think about every major moment in your life. Were you ever really ready? Were you ready to become a parent? Were you ready to re-enlist in the military? Ready to get married? Were you ready to lose someone you loved? Ready to lose a friend? Were you ready to change those careers or move across the country? No. Life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. So why are you waiting? Now, I want to know, what's the thing that you've been putting off because you're waiting to feel ready? Just drop one word in the comments, whether it's a book, gym, school, healing, a business, whatever it is. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, because I've held out for years talking about, you know what, I'm just not ready. Just not ready. Not ready to start a business. I'm not ready to go back to school. I'm not ready to do anything. I'm not ready to start a relationship. I'm not ready to be in a foundation or anything. I've used those words plenty of times, thinking that I had to be ready. School. So realistically, what's stopping you from going back to school? And it's funny, right? Because when you start to think about those things and you're like, well, I'll do it when I'm ready, then what does your brain do? It's going to look for reasons to support you not being ready, right? Oh, I just don't have the time. Oh no, listen, I can't. Between the kids, between work, like I don't have time. Oh, I'm not ready to go back to the gym. I don't have time. I don't have time. My life is too hectic. I can't do this. Right? Right. I'm not ready to move forward in my career, but I've started applying for promotions. Hey, you're applying for promotions. It's progress. Right? You're never gonna feel ready. And nothing great happens when you're comfortable, right? You're just gonna have to. You're gonna have to leap. It's not that I'm not ready. I just don't want to settle down. Then that's different, right? If that's where you're at, that's where you're at. That's not about being ready. Those are setting, like, you have a preference, you have boundaries. So those are different. Jojo, you'll never be ready if you'll never start. Absolutely. Also waiting for someone's health to improve to move on them or forward. See? There's a lot. There's a lot that we tell ourselves about whether we're ready. And what I think is happening is, I need to be ready, right? I need to be ready. Somehow we convince ourselves I need to be ready, right? And that's not a fact. Again, that's a story that we told ourselves, a story that we convinced ourselves that it's true, right? Because I think that what we're really saying is, I'm afraid. That's it. I'm afraid. All this time, that was me. I'm afraid to write a book. I'm afraid to take the next step. I'm afraid to apply for that job. I'm afraid, right? Why? Because I'm afraid I'll fail. I'm afraid that the people are going to judge me or that I'm going to look stupid. I'm afraid I'll succeed and then I'll have to become someone different. You see the difference? Sometimes we just dress fear up in better clothes, and we don't call it fear. We call it timing, preparation. We call it waiting. research, or one more certification, right? One more paycheck, one more Monday, one more year, one more whatever. So, and when I started Metal Warrior 22, I wasn't ready. I was waiting. I wasn't ready. Writing the book, I wasn't ready. I sat on it for 7 years. I don't think I was ever ready. I just decided to finally do it. If I had waited until I felt completely confident, I don't think any of this would ever exist. And it's not because I think I lack the ability. No. And I'm not saying it because I'm like in a conceited way. No, I said I know my ability, but it's because confidence doesn't come before the action, it follows the action. And I was afraid. Or I guess for me, when it comes to change, it's difficult to make change due to uncertainty. Usually, when I am either fed up or tired because my back is up against the fire, it makes me move. That's a trauma response, and your fight or flight, right? You have to be under pressure in order to move. There has to be some chaos because we thrive in the chaos. Matt, you were ready. You just needed a kick. Yeah, listen, I needed someone to push me out that plane. That's it. That's it. So here's the question. What if the story I'm not ready is the very thing that's keeping you from becoming the person that you're capable of being? It's not because it's true, but because you've repeated that so many times that you stop questioning it. You stop questioning it. And here's what's fascinating about this, that once you believe a story, your brain's going to become a detective and it starts collecting all the evidence in your life to prove that story right. So again, if you believe, if I believe I'm a failure, guess what I'm going to notice? Every failure, every mistake. Same as if I believe that nobody loves me, every rejection is going to stand out. Our minds become like a detective. It becomes an evidence collector. And that's where I want to shift to. Because once you understand this, you realize why two people can live through the exact same experience and walk away with completely different stories, right? You're made for this, friend. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. I appreciate you. So here's another one. Um, have you ever bought a new car and suddenly you start to see that same exact car everywhere? Before you bought it, you didn't notice it, right? You may have seen one or two, right? And you bought the vehicle. And now you start to notice it everywhere, right? The same color, the same model, same wheels, right? Did everybody suddenly go buy that car? Of course not, right? Of course not. It was always there. You just now started paying attention, right? Some people call it all kinds of different things, right? You've awakened, right? Now you're focused. You're noticing those things. So our minds work that same exact way. Whatever you tell your mind is important, it starts looking for it, right? So if every morning you wake up saying, nobody respects me, what do you think your brain's going to notice? It's going to notice again that disagreement, the criticisms. It's going to notice that delayed text message or every person who doesn't smile. Meanwhile, you're completely ignoring the people who do love and respect you. So if you have that mindset and wake up thinking that you're a failure, your brain's going to save all that information, all that data of every mistake, every rejection, or every embarrassing moment in your life. And your accomplishments, they won't count. They won't count. Your brain's going to tell you, oh, that was luck, right? Anyone could have done that. Doesn't matter. Does that sound familiar? How many of you have ever talked yourself out of your own success? I met people who say nobody supports me. And some of you may have said those same words. Nobody supports me. Like, really? Nobody, right? Nobody. Or did three people support you and maybe one person criticized you? And you've been replaying that one comment for months, maybe for years. You know, all it takes is that one person to criticize you, especially if it's the right person, right? If you're a kid and it's a parent, like that's gonna hit hard and you're gonna stay there and that's gonna carry with you, right? So that one criticism is gonna wipe out all the support and all the love and all the compliments and everything after that. You know, we've all done that at some point. So think about this. Two people, two people can lose the exact same job. One person says, I knew I wasn't good enough. The other guy says, maybe this is opening a new door. It's the same event, different stories, different future. Two people go through a divorce. One person says, you know what, I'm never going to trust anyone again. The other person might say, it's all right, now I know what I deserve. Same pain, different meaning, different life, right? Same situation, two different stories. Life doesn't only happen to us, it gets filtered through the meaning we assign to it. And that's why two people can experience the same setback and build completely different lives afterwards. So I want everybody watching to do something. I want you to take your hand, take your hand, point to your head, right? Just take your hand and point to your head. Listen, humor me. I can't see you, but I'm going to assume that you guys are taking your hand, putting it to your head, right? Now, ask yourself, who have I allowed to become the narrator of my life? Who have I allowed to become the narrator of my life? Was it a parent, an ex, a bully, a supervisor, maybe a stranger on the internet who criticized you? Or have you become your own loudest critic? Linda, RAS is a crucial network of nerve pathways in the brainstem that regulates wakefulness, attention, and sensory processing, acts as a filter for sensory information, determining what reaches our conscious awareness and influencing our focus. Thank you, Linda. That was awesome. It's funny what you said because two people can view the same event and see it differently depending on the trajectory. Yes, and depending on the story they decide to tell themselves. Natasha, I'm the problem. Definitely, it's me. Are you though? Are you though? Like, I want you to challenge yourself and question those, right? Because again, we question all the success and all the good things, but we don't question those criticisms. We take it like, oh yeah, okay, true. Yeah, I'm the problem. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me, right? So I've had people tell me what they thought I couldn't do. I've had people question my purpose, question my dreams, question whether Mental Warrior 22 is even going to make a difference. I mean, I've struggled with those, but imagine if I accepted their story instead of just writing my own, right? Never let someone who isn't living your life become the author of your story. Say that one more time. Never let someone who isn't living your life become the author of your story. So we are about to pay the bills for a moment, but stay tuned. We'll be right back. What you wear says something about who you are. At Mental Warrior 22, we don't just create apparel, we represent resilience, purpose, and the decision to keep moving forward. We're the mindset, live the mission. Shop the Mental Warrior 22 collection today at mw22.org/shop. Combat Coffee Company, veteran owned, mission driven, built for those who never quit. Whether you're starting your day or chasing your next goal, Combat Coffee Company keeps you fueled for the mission ahead. Fuel for the mission, one cup at a time. If you've ever felt like you're surviving instead of living, this book is for you. The War Inside isn't about pretending life is easy. It's about understanding the battles we fight in our own minds and finding a way forward. If you're ready to stop living in survival mode and start reclaiming your life, pick up your copy today. The War Inside, available now on Amazon and mw22.org. And welcome back, everyone. So going back to the comments, sometimes you have to find right team in order for something to be successful, but it doesn't mean that it's going to go to its demise. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that it is important. I find it interesting too that sometimes you find your greatest support from complete strangers or in the least likely place. Meanwhile, the ones closest, your loved ones, your family, they often don't, right? We've had this conversation. I've had this conversation recently where I truly believe that, the reason why some of the people close to you don't support you is truly because it has nothing to do with your success. I mean, you can be killing it. You can be doing great. And they might smile and be like, oh, that's awesome. Or they might hate on it. And I think that it has nothing to do with you, right? When you succeed at doing something, it exposes them. That's how they view it, right? And that's not everybody, right? Because someone with some level of emotional intelligence, someone who isn't hating on somebody else, someone who genuinely wants to see other people succeed will not see it this way. But there is the other side where if you are succeeding, you are exposing my failures, right? Oh man, you went and took that trip. Damn, how long have I been sitting on taking this trip? I should have done this. I should have gone a long time ago, but I haven't. Oh, you started a business. Damn, I've been waiting, right? So it exposes their lack of, and that's what they view it as. And then they let that becomes their story. And their story starts to grow and they look for evidence, right? And rather than support you, they start to hate on you, right? And it could be the littlest things. I bought a home. Oh, it's 3 bedrooms. Should have gotten 4. I got a truck. Oh, it's this color. I should have been that one. There's always going to be people hating, right? Right? All those backhanded compliments. Yes, Natasha, how's the little business going? Meanwhile, they're not doing shit with their lives, but they want to hate on you, right? Because it's easier to bring you down back to their level instead of it awakening something within them and wanting to elevate as well. So, Matt, they're jealous of your success. It's the unfortunate thing, right? Danielle, must be nice. It is, but it's a lot of hard work and dedication that make the moves happen. Yes, it is. It is. None of this comes easy, right? None of it. Everyone shows up to see the show. Everyone is there for the show, but no one was there to notice how many times you had to rehearse, practice, get everything ready for it, right? All the blood, sweat, and tears that you put in. And when you do succeed, some people come on, they're like, I knew you can do it. So, Maggie, my sister likes to put her misery on me. Can't understand why I teach trauma-informed yoga. A lot of it's because her ex, my ex. It's Listen, that's a double-edged sword also, because when you are in the industry of like you help people, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. You're gonna be that go-to. So, you know, tonight we've been talking about where our stories come from. We talk about the stories that we've been believing and how our minds is constantly looking for the evidence to prove those stories right. So, Natasha, I get kicked out of my aunt's marks. It reassures me I'm doing the right thing. Listen, I had this conversation today that if 5 people are hating on me, my goal for next week is to have 10 because it means I'm doing something right. Because if there's one thing I learned is that no one that's doing better than you has the time or the mental capacity to want to hate on you. Whoever's hating on you is usually not doing what you're doing. They're hating on you because they either can't, right? And it's not that they're really not capable of doing it. They just choose not to. So they rather hate on you. So it means you're doing something right. So, well, I want you to think about this. Your story is powerful. It's not permanent. It's powerful, right? So think about that. Just because you believe something for years doesn't mean it's true. Just because you've carried it for a long time doesn't mean that you have to carry it forever. You don't have to carry it forever, right? The story isn't over, right? Some of you watching tonight may have convinced yourselves at some point that you're broken, that you feel too old, or you've made too many mistakes in your lives, right? Or I've ruined too much, too many things, too many people, or that you've missed your opportunities. But I'm going to push back on that one for a second. So my question is, who told you that? Who told you that? Who told you any of those things that you missed your opportunity, right? Because I promise you that life has knocked you down plenty of times before, and somehow you're still here. Everyone watching tonight, every one of you guys, at some point in your life, maybe you've been fighting and clawing your way up since you were a kid. Maybe, right? Maybe some of you may have had a pretty decent life, but somewhere along the way, life kicked your ass, right? There were trauma in your life and things that kind of shifted the trajectory, right? And you changed the narrative, the story changed in your life, right? But you're missing the bigger picture. Life has knocked you down however many times, and yet you guys are all still here today. You're all here, right? And I'm not saying you may not feel exhausted. I'm not saying that it's not kicking your ass, but you're still here. You're still fighting, and you're still searching. You're still showing up. It may not be how you show up on your best day, but guess what? You are still showing up. Those people that on their worst days still decide to go to the gym, but they don't do the whole complete workout. They just do a slight bit and all that stuff. And you get in your head and you're like, man, I half-assed that workout. Bullshit. You showed up. You showed up. So many times in your life that you could have quit, but you still show up, right? That parent, that single parent, people taking care of their kids, the person taking care of their business, waking up every day to make things happen, to try to change the narrative. You're showing up. That's it. It may not be perfect. It may not be exactly how you want it, but you're working towards that. You're changing that story. So, one foot in front of the other. Absolutely. Absolutely. The only time it's a missed opportunity is because you didn't attempt to do it. Right. Right. Goes back to the jumping out of the plane. right? Everyone thinks that the hardest part really is jumping out of the plane. For me, it wasn't. I think that the hardest part was the narrative, the story I told myself as I was making my way to the plane, right? Like, I can't believe I'm doing this shit. I can't believe this is going to happen. I can't believe. And, and I just psyched myself out. And I didn't want to do it at first. And then the doors open and you're like, oh, hell no, I don't want to do this. But once you jump, once that parachute opens and you're floating in the sky, you're like, why didn't I do this before? Why didn't I do this? We as older veterans need to know that a male's brain is not fully developed until they're at least 25, 27. Some psychologists have even said 30 in women. It's usually around 23, therefore, the suicide rate is even higher. The average adult soldier, prefrontal cortex, is the last part of the brain that's to develop. Is where reasoning and all other things. It's the reason why men's insurance doesn't go down until 25. Interesting. I like that. I like that. It's, Danielle, this is how I die, would be my conversation. I think that's most of us. You know, again, we create a narrative, we create this story. And like, just because we create that story, it's just like any other story, right? You go to a bookstore, right? You have your fiction, you have your nonfiction, right? Not everything in the bookstore is true. Just because it's a great story doesn't make it true. You know, that horror doesn't mean it's true. It's the same. We create this story, and it's on you to decide whether that becomes your truth, right? And if you're suffering right now and you feel that you're suffering, again, your story isn't over. Every story you've seen, it doesn't just stay like this, right? Isn't it? It isn't just a series of just bad events and then that's it, the end. No, right? It's just like being hooked up at a hospital at a monitor. It's the up and downs, right? So if you're suffering right now, trust me, you're gonna claw your way out of it. It's gonna go back up, right? You're gonna get past that. You get to rewrite that story. So I want you to try something. Close your eyes for a minute. Again, just humor me. Close your eyes for a minute. And picture yourself 5 years from now. Picture yourself 5 years from now. Not the version of you that's trapped by fear. Not that version. Not the version listening to every critic or the version that's waiting until they're ready. No, the version of you that finally believes I can, right? So I want you to close your eyes and picture yourself 5 years from now, the version of you that believes I can. Now, what does that person look like? What does that person look like? How do they carry themselves? How do they love? How do they speak? How do they treat themselves? So here's the question. What has stopped that person, or what's stopping that person from becoming the you today? I don't think that it's the circumstances, right? It's the story. So I've said this before. I believe it. Like, I believe it with everything that I have, honestly. Don't judge your entire life by one chapter. Do not judge your entire life by one chapter. Some of you are trying to write the ending, but you're still in the middle of your book, right? Think about that. You're trying to create this ending to your life, you know, oh, this is where I'm going to be. This is how, no, but you're still in the middle of your book, which means that it isn't over. So whether it's a low, whatever, wherever you're at, your story's not over. So don't judge it by one difficult chapter. I'm so out of my comfort zone, working my way up. It's all you can do, right? It's progress. It's progress over perfection. That's it. It's just how can I be better today than it was yesterday, and you just keep pushing forward, right? You keep pushing forward. So none of us will ever really know the ending. Just got to keep living like we're in the middle of the book. That's it. You know, that's all you can do. Map, money. Listen, we got to win this lotto. You know, every story, as I mentioned earlier, is going to have its conflict. Every story is going to have its setbacks, and every great story has its moments where you wonder, oh my God, how is this going to turn out? But imagine if you set your favorite book down halfway, right? Halfway through your favorite book. You've been wanting to read this book and it's getting good. And you set it down, right? And you just say, oh, I know how it ends. You never do that, right? If it's your favorite book, if it's your favorite story, right? So why are you doing it to your own life? Why are you already assuming like, oh, I know how this ends? We got to play the lotto to win the lotto. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, when I look back at my journey, my life, you know, whether it was combat recovery, the PTSD, learning how to rebuild, going back to school, there are moments where I questioned everything. Listen, this happened religiously, right? Where I didn't know what the next chapter was going to look like. But there's one thing that I learned is, again, healing isn't going to happen because life suddenly got easy, right? Healing happens when you stop letting yesterday decide who you're allowed to become tomorrow. Think about that. Healing is going to begin the moment you decide, right? The moment you stop listening and letting yesterday decide who you're allowed to be tomorrow. So, perfectly imperfect, yet building a magical life. That's that's it. That's everyone, right? We're perfectly imperfect, right? You're not meant to be perfect. No one's going to be perfect, right? We're so good at judging other people as if our lives were completely perfect. And it's not. That's not how it should be. You know, at the end of the day, it costs nothing to be kind to anyone else, right? If you're struggling and you're going through things, then why is it so difficult to understand or show grace to someone, even a stranger? Because they might be going through the same thing. They might be going through those same things. You know, I had a conversation where we're talking about changing the story, you know, and we're talking about someone cutting you off, right? Rather than get pissed off about someone cutting you off. This is going to sound ridiculous, but this is just the story I created, right? I assume that when whoever cuts me off on the highway, right, they're in a hurry. They got to go poop. That sounds ridiculous. I know. But I would rather convince myself, oh, you know what? They're in a hurry. They got to go poop, man. Because if I had to, I'm gone, right? Because that made me retrain my brain for a moment. That made me think differently rather than cuss them out, rather than be upset at them, rather than let it ruin my day. Oh, by the way, if there's people in my vehicle, it's ruining their day because now they got to deal with my shit and me yelling. Versus, go ahead, man, go do your thing. It's just changing the story. Danielle, may their coffee always be cold. Listen, don't even get me started with that. So I was hoping that it arrived today. However, this is why I'm excited to tell you guys that as of today, I have officially published the War Inside workbook. The War Inside workbook is officially out, right? When I wrote the book, The War Inside, my goal was to help people understand the battle that is happening inside everyone's minds, right? Inside their own minds. I was so grateful to hear so many things from the readers, and I kept getting asked a lot of the same questions, right? What's next? What's next? So I created this workbook, right? It's available on Amazon. It's the War Inside workbook. And I created this workbook not to give you more pages to read, no, but to give you pages to write on, right? Check it out, because healing isn't about information. It isn't just about information, it's about application as well, right? So the workbook has guided reflections, it has exercises, it has journal prompts, practical tools, and challenges that it's going to help you identify the stories that you've been living, right? I want you to question them and begin writing a new chapter. This isn't something for you to rush through in one weekend. It's something for you to come back to, right? It's one page, it's one lesson, it's one breakthrough at a time. And I will post it up tomorrow. I was hoping that it was here today, but again, you can check it out on Amazon. It's The War Inside. It's part of the War Inside series. The book is there as well. Then, yeah, more homework healing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, like I said, the book is teaching you and helping you understand. The workbook is putting in the work, right? Because that's what it should be about, right? We're all about healing, right? Because I truly believe this, that transformation doesn't happen because you hear one inspiring message, right? It happens because you choose to do the work. And the work is going to be again and again. And that's what this workbook is for. So, again, if the conversation speaks to you, if you recognize the story that you've been carrying, don't let tonight be where it ends. Let tonight be the beginning. Okay? So, congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Listen, I'll be honest. You guys motivate me to want to continue, right? Like, I just want to be that mirror. It's not me making you or helping you or saving you or no, I want to be a mirror to remind you, like, hey, take a look at you. Look at who you really are. Remind yourself of the badass that you are before life told you different. That's it. I want us to build this community for Mental Warrior 22 Foundation to continue to grow as a community, right? And my hope isn't that you simply like own it. Like, my hope is that one day you look back and realize that all of this work that you're putting in, right, that it helped you write a chapter that you never thought was possible. Okay? So, to Amazon, I go, thank you. Awesome time. Gave me some good food for thought. Thank you. Loving your book. I appreciate it. Listen, if you haven't yet, I ask, please leave a review on Amazon. Apparently, I need those things. So, but before we close out tonight, I want you to answer one question in the comments for me. What's one story you're choosing to stop believing? What's one story you're choosing to stop believing? I want you to answer that in the comments. Everything we talked about tonight, I want you to put in the comments, what's one story you're choosing to stop believing? And maybe it's that I'm not enough, that I'm too late, I'm broken, I'll never change, right? Whatever it is, I want you to leave it here tonight. I want you to put that in the comments and leave it there, right? This is our version of burn after reading, right? If you've never done that, I would encourage you to. Your thoughts, I set a timer for 5 minutes and I just write all my thoughts on a paper. And when I'm done, I will read it out loud and then I burn it and I put it out into the world. That's it. You don't control me anymore. That no longer has power over me. And this is what I want you to do. So in the comments, I would love for you to put what's one story you're choosing to stop believing. Again, whether it's I'm not enough. Tasha, I bit more off than I can chew. Meg, I'm not ready. Right? We're changing these stories. Right? You didn't bite off more than you could chew. Right? You're killing it. Right? That business is yours. There's a ton of people who aren't doing what you're doing. Own it. Right? It ain't always going to be easy, but it's yours. Meg, you're never going to feel ready. You're never going to feel ready. Just take the leap. Take the leap. Let's do this. So I can't achieve my dreams because it's too late for me. It's not true. It's never too late. It's never too late. You know, was it Steve Jobs didn't do his thing until his 40s and a whole lot of other people? Listen, it's never too late. This is your journey, no one else's. So you don't need, we often feel that we're too late because we're comparing where we're at, where everyone else. You know, when I went back to school with all these 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and I was retired out of the military. I felt so old that I almost quit. It's your journey. It's not theirs. I didn't go to school for them. So it's never too late. Matt, I don't have time. So my question to you, Matt, is, are you gonna continue to waste time worried about not having time? Or are you gonna take advantage of the time you do have and rewrite that story? You know, the story I'm choosing to stop believing is that I can't do it alone. I can and I will succeed. My support group is a bonus, but I'm strong enough to do it. There you go. Meg, I'm not ready, but I have that interview on Tuesday. Listen, good luck. You got this. You got this. Okay? So we're leaving all that here. That voice in your head, it becomes the life in your hands, right? So choose that voice carefully because that future is listening. So I want to thank you guys for spending your Wednesday night with me. If this conversation encourages you, challenges you, or reminds you that you're capable of more than you've been telling yourself, then share this, please. Share this episode with someone. Share it on your page. If you're not following on YouTube, please like, share, follow. But once again, thank you guys so much. After this, I'm going to go over to TikTok, answer some more questions. If you guys have some questions, I'll be on for a little bit. But Matt, love the show. Keep up the great work. Thank you. I genuinely appreciate you guys for supporting me, for being a part of this journey, right? For us doing this together. And I look forward to seeing what the future holds for us, right? Because we're rewriting this story. So once again, I'm Alex Bonilla. This has been Mental Warrior 22 Show. Remember, the story that you survived doesn't have to be the story that defines you. Go write a better chapter. Until next week, we're stronger together and no one stands alone. And go out and be a warrior for someone else. You guys have a good night.